This is DW News, live from Berlin. The Taliban's first news conference addresses the future of Afghanistan, including women's rights.
We are guaranteeing all their rights within the limits of Islam.
A spokesman for the group says they've changed since they last ruled 20 years ago. And as foreign governments airlift their citizens out of Afghanistan, Germany's evacuation operation is criticised for being too slow. And more devastation in Haiti in the wake of a massive earthquake that's claimed 2,000 lives. A tropical storm hits the Caribbean nation with heavy rains and strong winds. Hello, I'm Raheela Mahomed. The Taliban held their first news conference in Kabul. The group put out a positive message calling for women and former officials to join their government. They promised to respect women's rights, media freedom and forgive their former foes. But many remain sceptical inside and outside of the country.
Desperate people are still trying to flee the country. But on the streets of Afghanistan's capital, armed Taliban fighters are showing a sense of calm, backed up by their weapons. Like these militants outside the Afghan Interior Ministry. Despite the guns, their message is to convince the Afghan people that there is nothing to be afraid of. We want the people to come to their workplaces or offices. There's no problem on the part of the Islamic Emirate, and the people of the nation should not fear the Mujahideen of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, because the nation is from the Mujahideen and the Mujahideen are from the nation. Undermining the received wisdom of the Taliban's hostility towards women, this Taliban leader engaged with a female presenter in a TV interview, an unprecedented move for the Islamist group and perhaps part of a wider move to tap into the desire for peace and allay the very real fears that women are not safe. It was a line that was reiterated in a Taliban press conference later.
Women will be afforded all their rights, whether it is in work or other activities, because women are a key part of society. And we are guaranteeing all their rights within the limits of Islam.
An attempt to show a moderate side, perhaps, but many are sceptical of a group which presided over brutal punishments and severe restrictions for women. Superficially, though, the Taliban presence appeared to be not so unsettling for the residents of Kabul. Some went about their daily tasks either out of curiosity to see how things are under the new Taliban, or out of necessity. Most of those out on the streets were male. This woman, though, expressed a desire for peace.
I want to give this message to the youth that many young people were martyred. My son is one of them. I don't want any more bloodshed. One of my sons was in the police. He was killed 2 years ago. The other is still alive.
Conflict has been a part of their lives for so long that many Afghans are desperate for peace, but extremely wary of the promises being made by the Taliban.
Well, earlier I spoke to Shuja Nawaz, a political analyst based in Washington, D.C., and I asked him what he made of the somewhat moderate face the Taliban presented in their first news conference after coming to power.
I think this is something that's been in the works for quite some time. The Taliban's propaganda machinery, their public relations machinery has been in full gear. They've been communicating with the world through WhatsApp messages on a regular basis. And the spokesperson has now appeared in public, showing his face after all these years of being a shadowy creature. Now, whether this is Taliban 2.0 is something that we will see. But there are some silver linings that have emerged after this tragic war and the fall of Kabul. The fact that there was no fighting and the fact that there was no continuation of the civil war with the fall of Kabul. is a good sign. And the question now is, how long will that hold? And also, how quickly the Taliban will be able to engage with former leaders, including Hamid Karzai and Abdullah and other regional leaders in order to form a new government. The good thing is that they haven't yet unilaterally declared a new government. But the bad thing, of course, is that memories run very deep in the Afghan people, and therefore thousands of them are trying to flee the country.
Well, the takeover by the Taliban means governments and organisations around the world are scrambling now to work out their response. Here's some of the international reaction. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell says he is suspending aid to Afghanistan, but he also warned the EU will have to speak to the Taliban. Pakistan says it will be holding off on officially recognising the Taliban government until it has consulted with regional and international powers. And the International Criminal Court says serious breaches of international humanitarian law may have been committed in Afghanistan, including executions and the persecution of women and girls. Now, Western countries continue to evacuate their citizens and staff from Kabul. The first planes carrying British and Afghan citizens have landed in London. The UK says it hopes to bring up to 7,000 evacuees to Britain following the Taliban takeover. Prime Minister Boris Johnson also announced a scheme to accept 20,000 Afghan refugees, with women, children and minorities being given priority. And a few moments ago, a German evacuation flight has landed in Frankfurt. It's one of 3 special flights carrying people to Germany. The government in Berlin has been criticised for the slow pace of its evacuation campaign, but the Foreign Ministry says it's stepping up efforts to get more people out of Afghanistan.
A plane full of people escaping Taliban rule. Images shared by the German military of its 3rd rescue flight out of Kabul. By contrast, the first 3 German planes that flew to Afghanistan only brought a few people out. One flight left Kabul on Monday night with only 7 passengers on board. The security situation meant more could not be taken. Germany's strategy is to use the airport in Tashkent, the capital of neighbouring Uzbekistan, as a base for evacuations. They will then be flown on civilian airliners back to Germany. The first transport plane landed in Tashkent on Tuesday, bringing around 125 German embassy and support staff, but also citizens of other nations. The German government says the operation will assist anyone who can make it to Kabul airport. But there is fierce criticism of its handling of Afghans who work for the German army. This German officer runs an organization that sets up safe houses for local support staff in Kabul. He says that official rescue efforts are too little, too late. We stopped running safe houses for local people, and we told them to leave them now that they've become death traps. The Taliban are going door to door looking for local forces. And all I hear are the constant lies and half-truths to cover up what happened. Those of us who worked with local Afghans have no understanding for this. I listen to the cries for help, 400 to 500 of them every day, and it leaves its mark on us. Thousands demonstrated in Berlin and other cities to demand an unbureaucratic evacuation process and a welcome for people who want to come to Germany. They too are angry that the German government had not prepared better for the return of the Taliban. For those who want to leave Afghanistan, help is on its way. What is not clear is how many of them will be able to go.
Well, turning to Haiti now, where the death toll from a massive earthquake over the weekend has reached nearly 2,000 people. Emergency crews are searching for survivors as they battle a major storm with heavy rains and strong winds.
Armed with just a piece of plastic and up against a tropical storm. As Tropical Storm Grace rolled into Haiti, thousands of people were left without shelter. We're in the rain. We have nowhere to go. Where are the authorities? After the earthquake, thousands have been left homeless. People are becoming desperate as the days go by without help. Food, shelter, and emergency medical treatment are all in short supply, despite aid flowing into the country. The search and rescue mission has also been plagued with problems. The storm forced rescue workers to stop temporarily. Now, bodies continue to be pulled out from the rubble as the death toll mounts. The UN says the world must do more to help.
As assessments reveal the level of suffering, the scale of humanitarian need in Haiti continues to grow. The Secretary-General calls on all member states to mobilize efforts to support the country in averting a humanitarian disaster.
The Prime Minister has called for 3 days of national mourning, but the pain is sure to last a lot longer than that.